So coming up, what are our major milestones coming up? Going forward in early 2020, we will have our soft launch or our beta testing. And this is similar to what we're doing now in the revenue testing, but it's the final phase, which includes the public use to confirm all aspects of the system are performing well, both from a usability and a technical perspective. So we will be using the public with their real money under a smaller venue rather than a full launch. We'll have our full launch at the end of the summer of 2020, and that is when everything is up and operational. So with that, what's included in the soft launch in spring of 2020? We'll have our contactless smart cards, our mobile app, our consumer website, our back office system, which is basically the brains of the system, and our current transit store of sales. When we have the system up full at the late summer, we'll also include our retail network, which is like your Publix, Walgreens, 7-Elevens, the IVR system, which is the automated phone system, our open payments, which is MasterCard, Visa, Apple Pay, and we will also have our schools, our employers, and our social services website. This gives those organizations full access to control the use of the system. So why am I here today? I'm here today to ask for your support for the continuing services of Clever Consulting Group. Just a real quick recap of who Clever is. Clever's team is our subject matter experts on this project. And that team supported the implementation of the TriMed in Portland of their Hot Fast Pass, and they delivered that project on time and under budget. They are also in partnership with Google, looking to have a payment platform for the entire state of Oregon. They're working with a lot of the larger agencies on technical support, with Waimata, Sound Transit for Seattle, and the state of California, HART in Honolulu. And we utilize their expertise on a daily basis. So the technical support services that are continuing, we need their support for the revenue testing, like I had mentioned, that we are underway on now with our soft launch and our beta testing. And with our full public launch and our final systems acceptance. So how do they support us? They support us as the subject matter experts for the program planning and technical support, for the pre-implementation of our testing support, from a marketing strategy support, also from an infrastructure and configuration for launch readiness, and to assist with the vendor oversight and holding our vendor accountable for a high-quality launch. They are also guiding us through the technical writing of our procedure, our training, our processes, and our work instructions. So with that kind of brief overview, I am requesting that the Finance and Audit Committee authorize the Interim Chief Executive Officer to execute a modification to the existing contract for program management services with Clever Consulting for support of the Regional Interjurisdictional Mobility Project, aka Flamingo Fairs, for a not to exceed amount of $292,166 for a 16-month period, and also for your support in advancing this item to the full HART Board of Directors at the December 2nd regular board meeting.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chisler.
Question, what was the original budget for this project?
The original budget for the Flamingo project is $12,088,000.
And how many times have you had to come back for additional funding?
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. There's two separate projects. One is the support of the regional fairs, which is I'm asking for Clever Consulting Group.
Okay.
That's different. The Flamingo Fair project itself was $12,088,000. We kind of phased the Clever approach because first they were not with us from the very beginning. When things weren't moving correctly, we asked for their expertise to come on board and do a quick evaluation of where we are. Once we did that, they looked at it and identified some weaknesses that we had. at which time we went into contract with them for about $200,000. And this is an extension of that to get us through the next 16 months for an additional 200.
And they think that would be sufficient
Yes, absolutely.
for full implementation?
Yes. And it'll take us a little past full implementation.
Thank you.
Commissioner Kemp?
I have real extreme concerns about all of this also. So the Clever Consulting Group has been hired to help to consult with Flamingo, who has been on contract for how many years now?
The contract was executed in 15.
Right, well before I was ever on the board. And, you know, in minutes, before I was ever even elected a commissioner or served on this board, there's people, you know, asking for a one-day pass, and Flamingo promised it in August of 2018. It still hasn't ever happened. It's just, we have spent millions and millions of dollars on promoting or on this Flamingo project. What I would like to see is, first of all, some accountability here in terms of how many people are using it right now.
0.
Okay.
We're still in testing. So what we have to do is we have to validate revenue testing before we allow the public to use it.
But some people were using it back in 2016.
Correct. There was a limited group that was using it for testing as it was being developed. And that shut down, I want to say, in June of 18, or June of 19. And now everything is happening on the inside. We're doing control testing internally, which it will be released for beta testing again in the beginning of 2020.
Also, with regards to the, I guess the chart you showed about where different transit groups that are being worked with, you're talking about Clever Consulting, not Flamingo.
Correct.
Okay. I just, you know, I have lost faith. It's been 3 years, and so we have 0 customers, $12 million that we've spent so far for Flamingo, not for Clever. I understand Clever's been brought in to assist Flamingo, and you know, right?
I'm sorry, can I just correct you? We have
Sure.
not spent 12 million. The contract for total was 12 million. We have spent somewhere around 6 million for phased milestones.
We have FDOT spent also many millions, so
Correct.
in all?
FDOT is also a partner in funding, and TBART is a partner in funding. And it's not unusual for fare collection systems of this intensity to be several years, 7 to 12 to 15, and I can get you some of the data on other agencies. I think we're ahead of the curve, quite honestly. I know it was kind of overpromised in the beginning, and that was wrong, but we are pretty much where we should be.
Except other places, I mean, I've been all over the country. They all already have fare cards that, you know, you can use on, I mean, it's, I can't believe that we're ahead of the curve. It's hard for me to accept anything like that. I'm just, I just don't know if we continue to throw more good money after bad. And it just strikes me as being really, you know, questionable at this point. I had no idea that we weren't serving anybody at all because, you know, I had had the app and I saw the comments that were made before in terms of service and complaints and the promises before I even got on this board that, you know, it would be not only fully operational, but that it would also have capabilities that people wanted and get everywhere else around the country, like a single day pass. And I just, I feel like I need more information. I don't know what I need on this because I just think it's really gotten to a point that is really questionable in terms of performance. Certainly they have Flamingo, and I know we're talking about Clever here, but Flamingo has certainly been far beyond any reasonable performance. And when I said the $12 million, we've given $6 million, you said, HART?
I think we're right, I'd have to validate that number, but
Right.
right now, our progress payments, we are not at, that 12 million included some ongoing.
But if we
support.
included other payments that were made by other.
Yes, it would be a total. It
Yeah,
would not
of
be-
12 million so far.
The contract
Close
was
to it.
authorized up to 12 million, but up to this date, we've only spent between 6 and 7 million, and I'd have to get the exact
HART, you're saying no.
total for HART, DOT, and PSTA, our regional partners.
And full performance was supposed to be some years ago, I think.
And that's what I said. It was
Mhm.
overpromised.
Right.
I would like to get you a lot more information to show you where we are in the timeline. I think that would help supporting documentation or offer to sit down
Right.
and go through some of the details. I think we're on a real aggressive path, and I think we're poised for success. It's been painful, and it still is painful, but, you know, it will be a benefit to the community once it's up and operational.
Yes, Mr. Knight.
Yes, again, thank you for the information.
Sure.
I think at this time, we should hold off on moving any further to get more information, get a little bit more information. I just don't feel comfortable either moving forward at this point.
Yes.
Thank you for the presentation. Thank you for the opportunity to answer questions about our status and where we are. The first question I have is the understanding of what the request is. Is Clever Consulting project managing Flamingo, who we're paying to implement the new card?
Okay, so in it is the vendor that is responsible for developing what we call Flamingo. Flamingo is HART's brand as to what that card is called. But in it is the contractor or consultant that's responsible for the development of the system.
Okay.
Clever is the consultant who's helping us with the program management, because we don't have folks internally that have been part of a deployment of a system of this size. So they are our technical expert that are guiding us through this process from all aspects, from what the expectations are from the public, what are some of the things that we should be looking at from our marketing strategies, what are from the highly technical perspective of our revenue testing and our systems integration testing. They're kind of helping supplement and guide staff through that process.
Okay. And whose responsibility was that before we spent $200,000 on Clever Consulting?
It rested with the office here.
Okay. And then the last question I have is, then when you go back and get additional information, I'd like to understand how the $200,000 was spent and the recommendation to provide more dollars, how we plan to utilize that so we would better understand and can answer you in a more intelligent manner.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
If I may. Yes.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we refer this to the full board and request that the staff provide a full explanation of the background on this project, including which money has been spent, how much money, who has contributed up to this point, and to answer Commissioner Kemp's questions and really give a full explanation of this history on this project and what we're doing going forward.
Second.
I would also like additionally to understand what is planned in terms of retail locations for where this would be sold and how it would be sold, and what's included in that, and the capabilities for the future that are projected and on timetables for that for performance.
Yes, sir.
One more comment. When you do come back, and if you do with the information, please provide allocations as to what everybody else is paying so that we get a picture of the magnitude of the entire project. Because we're just talking 200 and some odd thousand here. Is that for just our portion of the additional for Clever? Or who else is contributing, who else is going to be doing what, so that we can get a better feel for the totality of the whole project?
Okay, so from the Clever perspective, that is...
Everything. Where do we stand with the whole thing financially, in my mind?
Okay.
But clever is the key portion that you're wanting right now, but this is taking on a life of its own. We need to make sure that it's being, fiscally responsible.
Sure.
Yeah, my motion did include future steps and a schedule. Well, I didn't say schedule, but I'll include that as
Thank you.
well as the additional information that.
Right, so we have a motion on the floor then to refer this for consideration to the whole board, and staff would give an overview presentation on the Flamingo Fair system implementation, and then also a bit of detail on what we're expecting from this consultant in managing Flamingo and what that relationship is. The consultant reports to HART and HART directs Flamingo, or the consultant communicates directly with Flamingo. I think those would be the things that, that we'd like to see. So with a motion and a second by David Mechanic, a second by Mr. Schisler, all in favor?
Aye.
Nay.
Okay, so then I vote, the chairman votes to push it forward to the full board, so that's 4-2. Let the record show the motion carries. So we'll look forward to a detailed presentation.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. Item 4B. Is it appropriate that we discuss 4B and C at the same time?
They are separate grant applications.
Okay.
So good morning, directors. For the record, Cindy Siglich, interim CFO for HART. So before you today is a resolution authorizing the Chief Executive Officer to execute a public grant agreement between HART and the Florida Department of Transportation to accept state block grant funding for fiscal year FY20 in the amount of $5,219,948. FDOT's state block grant program provides funding to HART to provide assistance with our operating expenses. This grant revenue is currently appropriated in the FY20 operating budget. It requires a 50% match that will be provided through HART's general funds, and it's satisfied through the payment of our operator salaries, benefits, and tax-related expenditures. The amount of funding that is awarded to HART each year is determined by formula, and it's based on our NTD, which is the National Transit Database Report that we are required to do by the FTA. From a historical perspective, over the last 5 years, the amount awarded to HART has grown between 2 and 5%. The amount of $5,219,948 represents a 4% increase over FY19. So at this time, on this item, I'll take any questions and/or request that you advance this item to the full board on December 2nd.
So
Any
moved.
questions? We have a motion to approve. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
I got a question.
Yes, sir. Councilman
Yes,
Schisler.
hi. A good presentation. Just to clarify, this has nothing to do with all the studies and so forth. This is just operating the operations for HART itself.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
So we have a motion to approve and a second to move this forward to the full board. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Item 4C.
Again, Cindy Siglich. Before you today is a resolution authorizing the Chief Executive Officer to sign and submit grant applications to the Florida Department of Transportation for FTA Section 5310 for operating support of HART's taxi voucher program, as well as capital funds to purchase paratransit vehicles. The FTA Section 5310, that grant program supports transportation services that are planned, designed, and carried out to meet the special needs of seniors and individuals with disabilities. In this grant application, HART is requesting a total of $500,000 to support the HART Plus Taxi Voucher Program and $400,000 to purchase up to 5 paratransit vehicles in FY21. HART implemented the Taxi Voucher Program in January of 2016 to provide same-day service to seniors and those with disabilities. In FY19, 82,391 trips were provided under the program, and it cost HART approximately $1.3 million. From a grant perspective, and just to give you a history, HART was awarded $400,000 in each of FY18, FY19, and we're still awaiting our notice of funding in the same amount for FY20. Excuse me. Since operating grants do require a 50% match, if HART is to be awarded the $500,000 in FY21, it would require a $250,000 match. Again, that would be satisfied by our payment to the vendor that provides the transportation under the taxi voucher program. As far as the capital funding request, HART received an award of $318,000 in FY17 for 4 paratransit vehicles, an award of $320,000 in FY18 for 4 paratransit vans, and is again awaiting a notice of funding of $400,000 for 5 paratransit vans in FY20. We expect that that announcement will be made in the next month or so. Since capital grants require a 10% match from HART, they also require a 10% match from FDOT, and the balance, the 8%, comes from the feds. If HART is awarded the $400,000 in FY20 or FY21, excuse me, we would be provided to support that in the amount of $40,000. I did want to make one correction in the action item. As part of the application process, we are required to hold a public hearing. That has to be noticed properly. And in this case, we were going to do that on the November 21st ADA committee. That is this Thursday. However, based on the notification requirements, we will be holding that public hearing on the December 12th Safety and Operations Committee. So just wanted to make that one correction. So that concludes my presentation. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer those or request that you advance this item to the full board.
Motion.
Questions? I had one question.
Yes.
Certainly supportive of you making the grant application. I know in the past, a lot of our public comments at the main hearings have been around the taxi voucher program, and I was wondering if staff had any ideas about how we could expand the vendor pool that takes advantage of this grant money, maybe to include ride-sharing services or...
Actually, I can defer to Ruthie Ray's Barcard on that.
Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you for that question. In this current contract, we did have a second provider, United Cab, that was awarded as a second to this contract for customers to have a choice, if you will, between the two contractors. However, within the first month of use, we received too many complaints from our customers about non-compliance to the standards of the contract, and that contract was then ended. I will inform you, though, that Uber Lyft had also submitted during that proposal period. However, they did not meet the compliance of that contract and therefore were not selected as awardees. But this contract does go back out for renewal this spring, and we will again be looking forward to see what other options may be out there, or in addition to Yellow, if they choose to resubmit as a provider.
All right, thank you. Do we understand?
I know you mentioned in terms of the match on the taxi voucher, it's $500K, we match it with $250. Of course, the program costs more than that, so it's not going to be an issue. In terms of the capital, $400K, 5 vans. I know we're scheduled to purchase many more.
Yeah.
Is there a required match on that?
That match is a 10% match for HART, and it's a 10% match for FDOT in this program. So FDOT would put in $40,000, we would put in $40,000, the remaining $320 would come from the federal grant.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry, I was mistaken that I didn't understand this was a federal grant. But that will nowhere near cover the purchases that we have planned, is that correct?
That's right. We have approximately 56 vans that are past their useful life at this time. In fact, in the Safety and Ops Committee and following this meeting, we'll be asking for 44 vans to be replaced. We have federal funding identified for that. So we'll still, even with the potential of ordering 5 vans on the FY20 grant, as I said, will hopefully be announced any time now. And additionally, with those that we would be purchasing in 21, we'll just get to the point where we'll be at full complement.
So on the 44 vans, because this is just for 5, the 44 vans you said you're going to be identifying, there are possibilities for grant funding for that?
Yes, I've already identified grant funding for those.
Great, okay. Thank you.
Yes.
All right, great. What's your pleasure?
So moved.
We have a motion to move the second by Mr. Schisler. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? 4C carries. Item 4D.
Good morning, John Edmondson, Director of Procurement. I stand before you today asking that the board authorize the interim chief executive officer to delegate contracting authority to named individuals within the finance department. Our procurement manual requires that the board confer upon certain individuals the authority to enter into contracts and purchase agreements with external vendors. And we are here today to ask that you confer upon Charles Stiglich, who is a new contracts specialist with HART, and Tina Prieto, who was recently promoted to the position of contract specialist. Both the contracting authority of $50,000, which is what that position, contract specialist, that's their threshold basically for being able to enter into a contract. Both employees have successfully completed their 90-day probationary period and are ready to get out there and start doing some business for HART. Any questions?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Commissioner.
I'm looking at the table on page 411 of the backup materials, and I guess I'm confused about the delegation. This table indicates that there's, like, for example, no limit on the authority to procure and execute contracts by Mr. Limmer. Cynthia Stiglich has a $500,000. I mean, I think I'm missing something here. Contracts above, I think it was 100,000, went to the board, and this table would indicate that that's not correct.
Actually, this table indicates the dollar value threshold at which certain individuals are allowed to execute the agreements. That does not supersede the board's requirement to approve all contracting activity above $100,000 prior to this. It's once the board has reviewed and approved those contracts exceeding $100,000, these individuals by name and threshold are allowed to execute those agreements.
Okay. I guess I would just suggest, and this is just the backup material, so it's not part of what we're particularly voting on, but I think there should be, the backup material should clarify that these do not supersede the circumstances in which the board must approve those particular contracts.
I'll make that clarification for future requests.
Thank you.
What's the,
I just have another question.
yes, Commissioner.
In terms of this, is this best practices, standard practices at other transit agencies?
Yes, ma'am. This is standard practice throughout the industry, is to appoint specific execution thresholds to various levels of responsibility within the organization.
And Madam Commissioner Board Member, all we're doing is adding 2 more people to what's already in place. That's all. We're just approving adding 2 more people.
And for clarification, Tina Prieto has actually been with the organization for several years. She was a purchasing agent. She was promoted to the position of contract specialist. And the contract specialist authorization threshold is higher than that of a purchasing agent. So we're requesting a bump in her authority and then to bring on the authority for Charles Stiglich.
Thank you.
Move this to the full board.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Let the record show the motion carries. And then finally, we have 4E.
Again, John Edmondson, Director of Procurement. I'm here today to request that the committee authorize the interim chief executive officer to execute a transfer of our the HART purchasing card policy and e-payables program from Bank of America to Synovus Bank. This transfer actually serves several different purposes. The first is all of our current banking and financial transactions or activity are housed with Synovus Bank, so this would consolidate our purchasing card program with the rest of our banking activities. Second, Synovus actually has a very robust rebate program that allows us to take advantage of some cashback opportunities to help basically lower the cost of that program as a whole. As our e-payables processes improve and mature, and we're able to migrate more vendors over to payment through a purchasing card, this will allow us to earn greater rebates as well through this program. So that's one of the things that we are going to be working on once this transfer is completed. And we're doing some other things to our financial management infrastructure to allow us to expand that e-payables program. This will help us better leverage that rebate program as well.
Any questions? Hearing none.
I have a question.
Yeah,
So,
Commissioner Kemp.
with the monthly spend of up to 5 million, is that what it is now, or?
Currently, our monthly spend for the combination of e-payables and purchasing card are about $2.5 million. As the e-payable program matures, we expect to be able to grow that to approximately $5 million.
I have concerns about doing it now then, because I'll say $5 million kind of shocked me, since our budget, our ad valorem tax budget is 44 million and then some 30 more million in grants. I mean, I'm not saying, but if we would not know, we could be in trouble in just 1 month from activity with a limit like this. I'd feel much more comfortable with keeping our current limit, and if there's necessary, if it's necessary to raise it in the future, then I could see that. But I feel more comfortable with the 2.5 million that we now have. So I'll make a motion to amend to have that transfer from Bank of America to Synovus with a monthly spend of up to 2.5 million.
Question
Yes.
regarding that, for clarification. The $5 million threshold is not a payment threshold. It's not a cap on spending by HART. It's more the amount that will be flushing through there as you move from a traditional cutting a paper check into an electronic payables format.
That's correct.
Okay, so there is no limit. To your point, Commissioner Kemp, they may well be at $5 million a month now, okay?
I see.
But most of it's between paper checks and e-payables, or the electronic format. And this would just move, hopefully, everything more to the electronic format.
Correct. Correct. Our current process is we pay some vendors through electronic funds transfer that are not connected to a specific purchasing card program. We pay other vendors through paper check. As that program matures over the course of the next 6 to 12 months, more of those electronic funds transfers payments will be based in this purchasing card program, and we will start to transition paper check payments over to electronic payables for those vendors that can accept electronic payables.
What is your current level of participation?
I don't have that answer off the top of my head today. I can find out
It's
for you.
just academic curiosity, okay.
We have a motion to push this forward to the full board with the limiting the monthly activity level of the account to the current 2.5 million. Do we have a second? Or
Can I ask a question? So if it were to continue at 2.5 million instead of 5 million, how would that limit or impede the ability to move forward?
So it would not limit our ability to move vendors from paper check to electronic payables. We would not, however, be able to exceed $2.5 million in electronic payables from this program, which would then effectively lower the amount of rebate we're able to leverage as a part of that program. We would still be able to conduct electronic funds transfers, but through other electronic methods like account-to-account transfer rather than the purchasing card.
I could withdraw mine.
Okay.
I'll move approval as recommended.
All right, we have an approval from Director McKennick and a second from Councilman Schisler. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion carries.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I have a small 4 FYI items for this committee. HART is in the process of preparing for the 2019 end-of-year audit. The auditors will be on site this week and, if necessary, in December, during the week of December 2nd. So staff is gathering items for the 2019 end-of-year audit. Secondly, FDOT, Florida Department of Transportation, conducted its first tri-annual review of HART's financial management and compliance in October, and the draft report was prepared on November 9th, and we're happy to say that it did not demonstrate any concerns, findings, or deficiencies, and the final report is forthcoming. And this is because HART receives FDOT grants and federal grants, so that's why the triennial is necessary. And the review is necessary regarding the annual sick leave payouts for employees and the annual turkey cards. Those were distributed in on November 7th, and in December, both the bargaining and non-bargaining employees will receive their performance merit payouts on the December 5th paycheck.
I would like to ask the council for an update on where we are with the, I guess we were putting a firm under contract to look into the complaint we had about deviation from our purchasing policies. What was the outcome of that?
Julia Mandel, I'm here on behalf of David Smith. Mr. Smith has not updated me on that issue. What I will ask, and Mr. Smith will be back at the end of this week, I will ask Mr. Smith to contact you individually to let you know the status of those items. Or alternatively, I can ask Mr. Smith to give me an update, and I'm happy to contact you before he gets back into town.
Okay, great. All right, well, not seeing any other business here, I move that we adjourn.
Yes. If I may ask, Chair, can you give any information on what's going on with the union contract? I know we got to wait till it come to us, but anything going on?
I can address, sir, that the union contract negotiations are still underway. They met last Friday and also on Tuesday, and they have future dates upcoming. So union contracts are still in, talks are still in negotiation. And also, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Smith's firm conflicted out of the investigation, so I can tell you that the investigation is underway.
Okay, awesome.
Has the law firm been selected?
Yes, sir.
And they've commenced work?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, we're adjourned.
Thank you.
Thanks.